Hello again to everyone who just came in. We'll be starting the webinar in a few minutes, so hang tight as we wait for people to come in. I'm actually pretty excited for this workshop because, getting the job or like trying to get like a volunteer role or a job position can be pretty daunting. Like, for example, like for resumes and such, like how to format them, as well as doing interviews. I find interviews like can be really scary at times, not gonna lie.
Absolutely. While we're waiting for people to get started, if anyone would want to go ahead and drop in the chat, just your name, where in the world you're tuning in from. Maybe it is where you live. Maybe you're with family right now. Maybe you're on some beach island like Vivian, or just embracing the Zoom backgrounds. And then also your dream fictional job. So any storybook that you read from when you were a kid, maybe you're thinking about being an R from Harry Potter, or you want to be a mentor at the Hunger Games. Like, what's your dream fictional job? Love to hear that if you guys could just drop that in the chat while we're waiting for people to go ahead and get started. Okay, Apurva, see that you are in California. Do you know what kind of law you want to study, or what kind of fictional law, if you want to lean into the whole fantasy realm, or if you actually know, then mad props to you. Nice, Vivian. Business, there's so much to do there. There's so much within business. I didn't even realize it until
Immigration to civil rights.
Oh, nice. That's sick. When I was in Cape Town, one of the women that I was in like a cohort or group with was practicing or shadowing someone who was doing immigration and civil rights laws within South Africa. It's really interesting. Hi, Lisa. A unicorn caretaker sounds like it would be so much fun. I feel like it'd be cool. I feel like there would also be a lot of chores involved. That's cool though. Yes, Lucy, Skilled Assassin. I read the book series Gallagher Girls when I was growing up by Ally Carter, I think. And I was obsessed with the idea of being a spy, like going to spy school and working for CIA or MI6 or something. Yes, Adele. Teleporting would be incredible. And especially not just on this earth. That'd be wild. Dragon Caretaker reminds me of I am a big Harry Potter fan, a super nerd. But Dragon Caretaker reminds me of in the fourth Harry Potter with the Goblet of Fire, when they have to do all the challenges and the dragons, like getting to be the dragon's personal handlers. That'd be an incredible job, Esther. And yes, Spy Kids. Love Spy Kids so much. Yes, Miko. I totally agree. But yeah, Skilled Assassin would be fun. Jack from Chicago. World leader definitely doesn't have to be fictional. Maybe, I don't know. If you want to join the UN, then you can be one of the prominent world leaders that's helping make a change. So that's good. Cool. We'll give it maybe just another 2 minutes, and then we'll get started. Maybe just another minute. Let people finish logging on. And if you're just joining, then we're just waiting for everyone else to finish getting situated and getting ready for this workshop this week. We're going to be talking about job hunts and how to land the job. So I thought a fun icebreaker would be to hear everyone's dream fictional job. So if you guys want to drop that in the chat, and we'll be getting started in just a minute. Fantastic. What do you think, Vivian? Ready to go ahead and start?
Yeah, for sure. Feel free to go ahead and start.
Fantastic. Okay. And if you guys have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to drop them in the chat. Because I do want this to be interactive. I want to make sure that this is something that's valuable for everyone here. So screen sharing and trying to get, there we go. Okay, so tonight we're just gonna go over, the focus of course is getting the job. There's a lot of different pieces of that, especially since y'all are so young. Means that you guys can definitely get ahead right now and maybe even apply some of these skills and techniques to your college hunt as well, or towards the college admissions process. So we're going to go over just the basics, go over some definitions, go over your elevator pitches and what those are. We'll go over finding the job and how you can actually source your internships or volunteer opportunities, and then also getting the job. So how to make sure that your resume is the best it can be, your cover letter, and making sure that you're ready to ace that interview. So without further ado, hello everyone. My name is Sophia. My pronouns are she and hers. I just graduated from Mercy College in May with a degree in finance. I will be a human capital consultant at Deloitte, which is one of the big 4 accounting firms, in January. So basically, I'm going to be going and helping other companies solve their people problems. Right now, I'm guessing a lot of what I'll be doing is looking at how to make any quick work from home fixes that people had to do, how to make those more long-term. But then also, I'm guessing now a lot of it will be looking at diversity and inclusion practices and making sure that they aren't just checking a box or just kind of going through the motions, and they actually are being very authentic with it. So I'm incredibly excited. I had no idea that human capital consulting was a job. I didn't know what people operations was really. And especially until I got into college and I started studying business, I thought that HR was pretty much all of the boring stuff that Toby does and gets yelled at for on The Office. So not the case. There are a lot of different layers there. And actually, I kind of found my way here because, like I said, I started in finance and then I ended up in HR, and it's kind of a leap. So just walking you through real quick. I went to high school in Bakersfield, California, so Central Valley area. I participated in the virtual enterprise program my junior and senior year. I was lucky enough to go to our team to go to nationals with our business plan team both of those years. My senior year, we actually ended up taking first place. It was awesome and incredible and amazing experience. Through virtual enterprise, I was recruited for Mercy College this winter of my junior year. So I got to go out to Mercy, do their leadership academy right before my senior year of high school, and they took us to a corporate visit, which was to Bloomberg, and then I fell in love and was basically sold on the idea of going to New York for school and going into the business world. So fast forward a year and a half, I'm at Mercy. I started off studying finance and marketing. It was a good gig, and in my first year, I got 3 internships. 2 of which were social media marketing, which I realized very quickly that I did not love doing. But my 3rd internship was with Eileen Fisher, which is a clothing company, and I was doing different workshops with their employees and with community figures. And that was an incredible experience. Learned how to work with people, learned how to facilitate workshops, and those skills I very quickly and was able to transfer over into a co-op with IBM. So before I talk a little bit more about IBM, you can see there's Modern Guild and Forte both in this little square. Modern Guild and Forte are both organizations that work with students either from non-target backgrounds, so either minority or non-target schools. And I got involved in those my freshman year as well. But IBM I got because we have a very strong relationship with them, with Mercy and IBM. I thought I was going to be doing very, very financy things, going through an Excel doc and basically doing travel reports and expenses. Wasn't the case at all. I was helping out the hiring and education team, so the education and recruitment. So I was in the HR pocket, which at first I was not thrilled about, but then it ended up being an incredible amount of fun. I got to help put together a networking day for over 500 IBMers with 2 of my fellow co-ops. So that was great. I got to run a design thinking workshop. And that's when I started to toy with the idea of professional development and something in the HR area. Didn't fully get that though. I spent 7 months at IBM. I spent a summer there and a semester. Then I added 3 online classes, or 2 in-person classes, 1 online, and 5 roommates. I almost went crazy because I did overextend myself, but it was great because at the end of the tunnel, I got to go to Cape Town, South Africa for another internship for my abroad experience. It was when I went through VA Course, which is the program that I went through. I was partnered with Startup Bootcamp, which is a startup accelerator. So they help startup companies get up to speed so that way they can take funding and mentorship and grow their business. And with that, there was a huge focus on the sustainable development goals, which the United Nations has created 17 goals for us to create a more sustainable future, some of which revolve around climate change, keeping our oceans and our earth healthy. Some revolve around making sure that people have equal opportunities. And so seeing South Africa, which is still a developing country, have such a strong focus on this was very humbling and eye-opening for me when I came back to the States, and I knew that sustainability had to be at the forefront of a lot of things that I did moving forward. But that summer, immediately when I got back, I went and worked at City National Bank and credit analyst. So I was finally doing that financy bank job that I wanted to do. I got that through Inroads, which is another organization that helps students find jobs. I didn't like it though. I hated being in LA, and I did not like the work I was doing. But luckily, Modern Guild, which I'd interacted with my freshman year, they tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, Deloitte's interested in you for a human capital consulting position. If you're interested and you want to prep, let us know and we'll help you through the process." I did. I got to go out to Atlanta at the end of August, and luckily, and very fortunately, I was able to nail my in-person interviews there at the end of August and land that full time. So this is all before my senior year. Finally, came back this past semester. I got to participate in Out for Undergrad marketing conference, which was fantastic. Another organization that helps students get paired up with jobs and opportunities. I started interning and volunteering with One Heart Africa, which does work in Mozambique and Eswatini. Since quarantine started, though, my focus now has been with Spark Your Resume. So I'm a resume consultant doing resume writing until my job starts in January. And then I'm also working on a fun project called Fortunas, which is about empowering students and connecting them with resources such as Out for Undergrad, Modern Guild, Inroads, Forte, MLT, SEO, so many other fantastic ones that I'll make sure everyone here has the name and information of, making sure students are aware of what that is. And so we're creating a platform, hopefully an online website and directory to give undergrad students, specifically in business right now, since that's both of mine and Bianca's fields. So I'm doing it with, but then we'll hopefully open it up to STEM, to liberal arts, to everything else out there to help undergrad students. So that's my background. As you can see, it has a lot of twists and turns. I would never have guessed that I'd be ending up at Deloitte. But that came from me taking advantage of opportunities that I saw. And that's one thing that I can definitely encourage everyone to do. But now that we've done that, that was an extended elevator pitch, a very long one, kind of explaining everything and putting it all out there for you guys. But I want to go into some definitions about just things that we'll be talking about for the next 40 minutes, maybe. And we'll have some time for Q&A, maybe 30 minutes. But an elevator pitch, so it's a quick synopsis of your background and experience, roughly 1 minute. So it's taking everything that I just explained to you and condensing it down. And the idea is you can sell yourself to someone if you're just in an elevator ride with them. After that, networking. So this is a very dry definition, the action or process of interacting with others and to exchange information or develop professional or social contacts. When you boil it down, networking is about building relationships. And if you think of it from the lens of building relationships, then I do believe that it absolutely will come a lot easier. Recruitment. So recruitment cycles, you guys will kind of see, think of it as the application cycle for college right now, for the students that are looking at applying to university. You have to keep track of what programs have their early action or their early decision when their general application closes. If you're applying with Common App, or if you're in California or applying to schools in California, the CSUs have their standardized application process. There's something similar to that in the job world, except it's a lot less organized. And nobody really will hold your hand and tell you, like, hey, finance recruitment starts on this date. Like, this is when XYZ companies open up their applications for engineering majors. But recruitment covers that start to finish process of attracting candidates, interviewing them, and hiring them. After that, we'll talk a little bit about interviews and what you can do to make the most of your face-to-face opportunity to connect with the hiring team. And that, of course, will happen after you submit a resume. And for those of you who don't know what a CV is, it's kind of like an extensive list or a much longer, unabridged version of your resume. You usually won't submit it, but it's always a good thing to have. It's a good way to keep your records. And then also a cover letter, which is basically a letter version of your elevator pitch. So now that we've done all the housekeeping and not as fun stuff, let's get to actually how to craft your elevator pitch. So just in the chat, if everyone wants to comment, have you ever had to come up with your elevator pitch or sell yourself? Anybody? Thank you, Apoorva. That's a no. Okay, cool. We have some yeses, some nos. Okay, well, this is perfect. So this is, yes, exactly, Vivian. Today's the day. So down at the bottom, you can see I have a little underline, Jody Glickman on pitching yourself. That's a link to Jody Glickman's LinkedIn education series on how to come up with your elevator pitch. I found it to be a very, very, very effective way to do it, but I'm going to walk you through her main points. And also we'll make sure that everyone gets a copy of this deck and my information, so that way they can follow any of these links afterwards. But you want to start with, let's see. Okay, there we go. So your three things, first thing you want to know is your destination. So where are you going? What are you excited about? What's your goal? So for me, looking, you guys have all my information from the past 3 years of university for me. If I was talking to someone, or when I was networking with people, when I was at my super day for Deloitte, interviewing for my role, where I was going, I wanted a human capital consultant role. Once I realized that was a thing I could have and a thing I could work for, that I knew was the role that I wanted to go towards. So that was my destination. I wanted to help others make their company culture better. That's what I'm excited about. So if you guys know your destination, maybe it's a class or a project you're excited to work on in this next school year. Maybe it's what university you're applying to. But if you have an idea of your destination, feel free to drop it in the chat. If not, you guys can also keep it to yourself. You can jot it down on a piece of paper. You can bookmark this for a rainy day. So moving forward, while you guys are thinking about your destination, you also need to know your backstory. So this isn't just your background. What I gave you was my entire background. Nice Isabella, I see future at Disney. Cool. So like, if you have those ideas, start thinking about where you want to go and what you are excited about. And yes, Vivian, exactly. Story is super important. That's the biggest difference between a background versus backstory. Story means that you are the narrator. which means if I'm talking to someone at Deloitte about why I want to be a human capital consultant, I'm not going to tell them about my social media internships from my freshman year. I'm probably not even going to mention Eileen Fisher. I'll probably focus on when I was at IBM, I got to work with 20 IBMers to run a design thinking workshop and rethink the way that they recruit their employees. That shows that I was able to go in and help IBM come up with a solution for a problem they had around their people issues. So that's part of my story. When I was in Cape Town, I was managing campaign operations for different startups. So I can manage a project or a campaign. So this is the time for you to pick and highlight your transferable skills or events that are relevant to your destination. And then finally, you want to connect the dots. So you want to say, like, even if your destination, so Isabella said that she wants to work at Disney. If you've never worked at Disney before, obviously you can't go in and say like you worked at Disney if you haven't yet, but you can say, oh, well, I've done this in high school. I've gone to Disney, or I've watched Disney movies, and I love the idea of the happiest place on earth. And that's what it is. That's what your focus is going to be on. If you can create happy experiences in other areas, if at your school you are involved in student government and can create a happy experience, you can then take that and say, like, add that as part of your backstory to connect the dots as to why you want to go to your destination, if that makes sense. So if anyone has their elevator pitch or a rough version of it and you want to drop it in the chat, feel free to. Again, if you guys want to message me after this and work on it, absolutely would be thrilled to, but I'm going to keep moving along. Oh, and just one more thing. It's a dialogue. It's back and forth. If you have these pieces, then it can be building blocks. You don't have to memorize anything. You don't have to worry about rambling this information off in 75 seconds or less. So that was kind of the background. No matter what you do, you're going to need to know your destination, your backstory, and how to connect those dots. But then you have to start figuring out, like, what is your destination? What kind of job or opportunity do you want? So here we have networking. The biggest tip I can say if you're networking is to be genuine. Like I said, it's about building relationships. If you're genuinely interested in people, it will be a million times easier for you actually to connect with someone and be able to talk to them in the future. Building or being interested and being genuinely interested is one of Dale Carnegie's principles from his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which I have linked here, the PDF version. So I'll make sure that everyone gets this sent out. But that book, I think, approaches networking in a very genuine way and a very easy to do way. The second thing, research. If you're networking with people, if you're connecting with them on LinkedIn, if you're going to an event, if you're meeting a college recruiter, if you're meeting an admissions counselor, you should know who you're talking to. You should also know what's going on with that company or college. You should know what's going on in the industry or the field you want to study. And the more researched you are and have that foundation, then the easier it'll be, again, for you to have an actual conversation. And then finally, following up is huge. It is so important. That is how you maintain your connections and you maintain relationships. And one of my favorite tips or tricks is if you're having an informational coffee chat or something, you can always ask for other people that you could talk to. So let's say that if there are any rising seniors, you guys have a call with an admissions counselor, end the call by saying, hey, is there any chance you have any students that I can talk to and hear a little bit more about their experience? Or if you're just doing an informational call, you're getting to know someone on LinkedIn, you could say, oh, do you have anyone else in this field or who went to this school or who studied this subject who might be willing to talk to me? It's a great way to easily give someone the opportunity to invest in furthering your development. Also, some folks on LinkedIn, Oliver Poor and Amy Sunham, wrote a great PDF document about the art of following up. It's linked here. I'll make sure you guys get it at the end of this presentation as well. And because we are now in the world of COVID, we also have to worry about digital networking. So really quickly, personalized notes on LinkedIn. It takes maybe an extra minute. I know it can be tedious. I currently have a ridiculous amount. I want to say I have 130 or something notifications that I have to go through and connect with people. But I decided since quarantine started, I'm not accepting anyone without having a conversation with them, without messaging them, without trying to build some kind of relationship. So hitting the connect button isn't always going to be enough. The easy conversations, even if it's just a, hey, Vivian, I saw that you're also working for Project Snapshot. I'd love to connect. I can't wait to get to know you more over the next couple months. Because I didn't know Vivian before Project Snapshot started, but then she can look at it and quickly say like, oh, okay, I'm working on this project with her. That's like our common thread. So absolutely would always take the time to do that, especially if you're trying to connect with someone that you really have never met before, especially recruiters. I would also say check out online events when possible. There are so many different webinars out there, topical or based on networking, and there's different hackathons, there's different project sprints. If anyone's curious about specific ones, you can feel free to reach out and I'll let you know what I have. But I think that the opportunities channel in the Slack, or opportunities, channel in the Slack workspace is fantastic for seeing what's going on. So whenever you can join those, whenever you can meet people through that, absolutely would suggest. And then also be engaged and be active. So comment on people's posts, add your own thoughts. Trust me, like people want to hear what you think. If you ever comment on one of my posts, I'll respond, I'll like it. I appreciate the engagement. And think about it, if you're making your own post, you want people to comment on it. You want people to have a conversation. So do the same. I also have here linked one of my friend David's LinkedIn guides. He's phenomenal, amazing, walks you through step-by-step how to have a top-notch LinkedIn and how to navigate it as well. Miko, I see that you said that when someone connects with you and doesn't leave a message, you try to message back. That is such a good idea. It's such a good point. Yes, that initiative is amazing. I know it can be tedious, but it's so worth it because, again, like you don't want to have empty connections in your LinkedIn. You want to be able to talk to people and ask for help when you need it. Okay, continuing to blow through here real quick. So recruitment, and a little bit more about recruitment. When you're applying for a job, recruiters are your audience, okay? You have a very little amount of time to actually connect with someone. And so you need to know really what a recruiter does, right? Campus recruiters, they look for interns and they look for entry-level employees. Usually and most of the time through campus visits or career fairs. Obviously, it's going to look a little bit different now in COVID. But it's important to keep in mind that campus recruiters are very different from technical recruiters, which look for specific roles, and they are not at all focused on internships or entry-level jobs usually. Your best bet if you want to connect with someone from a company or connect with a recruiter from a company would be to reach out to a campus recruiter. And also here I have alternate channels. So this is what my friend Bianca and I are focusing on with Fortunas. We're putting together a list of organizations and companies that help students either from a, like help them land an internship position or help them prepare for a career. So programs like Modern Guild, Forte Foundation Out for Undergrad, Marketing Edge, MLT, SEO, Inroads, Girls Who Invest in Generation, along with National Association of Black Accountants. And there's so many more that I'm going through right now, just learning about. They mentor students one-on-one, or they set up different conferences or different learning resources. And they're for students from non-target schools or with non-traditional backgrounds. So oftentimes Latinx, Black, or Asian Pacific, Native American, like there are different ways to get your name out there and get your resume seen, whether or not you went to an Ivy school, regardless of your skin color, regardless of your economic background. And these organizations are doing amazing, innovative things to help you out. So especially if you're a college student or about to be a college student, hit me up because I will have this like resource platform for you soon, hopefully. But again, this is your audience. Remember them when you're doing everything else. Moving forward again. Okay, now getting the job. So looking very much at the resume and the interview portion. Here we go. If I can click through it. It's been so good so far. 1 second, friends. Okay, how many of you have a resume right now while I'm waiting for the slide to change? Okay, I'm pulling that up again right now, friends. Okay, and also, how many of you have at any point gone through an interview? Okay, nice, nice. Lots of folks have resumes already. Nicely done. My PowerPoint is loading again. I don't know why it decided to do this. Okay. Okay, friends, good news, it's back up. Okay, nice. So some people have either gone through interviews for school positions. Some of you have resumes. That's fantastic. If you have any specific questions at any point, drop them in the chat and we can tackle them. And here we go. If you guys do have any specific questions about your resume or about interviews, start leaving those so we can start answering them as well. And I'll be on tomorrow for my takeover at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Okay, here we go. Finally. Thank you all for bearing with me. Cool. So now let's go ahead and talk about what a resume is versus a CV. A resume, as many of you are aware of, is like your one-page overview or highlights of your accomplishments, basically, and your activities. The biggest things, especially now, working at a resume writing company, is focusing on accomplishment-oriented bullet points. So focusing on the what you did, how you did it, and your outcome. And your outcome should be a tangible number or percentage whenever possible. So if you are on student government and you recruited 10 new members, that should be on there. That's awesome. You recruited 10 people. Fantastic. If you were able to grow your club's social media by 30% on social media, you were able to gain those followers, put that on there. That's a perfect spot to highlight it. And it also should be an easy to understand and easy to follow format, and also completely mistake-free. Right down here under these bullet points, I have a list of some resources that I really love to use. Austin Belkak and Jonathan Javier. They both are influencers on LinkedIn. They have phenomenal content. They talk a lot about what you should do for job applications and for resumes, and they have great tips and tricks on there as well. And yes, I'm seeing some of you talking about how long resumes can get. It is incredibly difficult. On the next page, I have a screenshot of my resume, which has way too small margins and tries to shove way too many things on the page. But I feel that, and that's part of the reason why you want to have a CV, part of the reason why you want to take the time to personalize your resume for each job. Comparatively though, a CV is your list of everything. So this is one of my clients from the resume writing company. She has a 4.5-page CV, which is fine, but it lists everything she's done. So it lists all of her education. It lists, you can see scholarship, so like all of her papers that she's writing because she's a PhD candidate. She also has different conferences she's presented at, different classes she's taught, different awards she's received, different roles she's had, internships, classes. And so take everything and let your resume fill up to where it turns into a CV, but then know that you also have to have a one-page document to submit for those job roles. Miko, I totally get you. For a while there, was treating my resume as a CV, and then I got really bad at keeping up with my CV. And resumes take a long time. Like, there is a reason why I'm getting paid to write other people's resumes right now, because it is tedious. And making sure that things are accomplishment statements. it takes time, but it is absolutely worth it. Completely. Yeah, the hard work can pay off if you format it the right way, if you make it easy to read, if you make sure that you're using like buzzwords, then recruiters will look at it, and that's what you want to happen. You want to stand out from the crowd. So here is my resume. As you can see, it is very filled. The margins are non-existent. I don't know that I would suggest or give anyone this template and say like this is the end all be all, because there's a lot of different ways to write your resume. But it's finding the format that works for you and playing with it, exploring, finding downloads, talking to your career center, talking to friends, talking to mentors. But up here I have education, and that can, for you guys, for all of you, it'll be high school for a while too, and you can keep your high school education on there for a while. You can put your GPA if it's above a 3.0, any honor societies or clubs you were involved in, you can put under education, or it might be wiser like when you're in high school and if you're applying and using this resume for colleges to have a separate section just for activities and leadership. But on mine, you have experience. You can classify that as whatever you want. You can put professional experience, relevant experience. You could put volunteer. Like you can change and manipulate that word to fit what you need. And I think especially since many of you are in high school, you can get a little bit more creative with it. And you can just put relevant experience or marketing experience if you're applying for a marketing role. And it doesn't have to be just jobs. I have a section for volunteer activities, which I have not updated in a while. I haven't touched this resume since March maybe or April. It's bad. Should definitely update your resume, friends. I have my projects, so class projects that were helpful for me. I did a stock analysis pitch my freshman year, and when I didn't have any finance internship experience, it was great to use that to talk to it and use it in my backstory and connect the dots. Then you can have your skills, and you want to focus on hard skills, which are your technical skills like Google Suite, Microsoft Suite, Adobe. If you use Hootsuite for social media scheduling, Wix, or what's the other one? WordPress for websites. You want to have those hard skills there, and you want to try and focus on your soft skills, which are your interpersonal like leadership skills or team management skills or organization, and intertwine those into different areas or different accomplishment bullet points if possible. I'm a big fan of interests because I think if you're specific, then it gives a recruiter something else to connect with you on. So like I have on mine scuba diving, surfing, sustainable development goals, speculative fiction, and piano. Any one of those things, if a recruiter were to ask me about, I could carry on an at least 5-minute conversation where I know what I'm talking about, and I'm very passionate about it enough to have a conversation. So that's where you can like have some fun and add a little bit more of your own flavor. So like with Purva and saying that you're interested in being an immigration lawyer, like that's where you can put in like specifically like, oh, I'm interested in immigration law, or if you're interested in certain countries, like you can put that on there. If you have languages, this is also where you would put your languages under skills and interests in that area. And then mine isn't as big anymore, leadership and activities. As a high school student, that's where yours can be very big, and you can go into different clubs that you've led. You can also have an awards like area on here, additional activities. If anyone needs help with their resume, again, I'll be doing the takeover tomorrow, and you're more than welcome to ping me after this and hit me up in Slack, and I can look over your resume. Moving forward, though, your cover letter, best way it was described to me was from a recruiter saying it should be your 1-minute soundbite. Your introduction, and again, think of it, this is your destination. So you're excited to apply for this specific position at this company because I have these awesome skills that give me a cool value add for this role or position. This is all about selling yourself. Get comfortable with it, embrace it. You're an awesome person and you do have skills that you can sell. Then your next paragraph should be your backstory. Again, it's not your resume. Highlight experiences that have transferable skills. So in mine, I talked about, this was the one that I used to get my job at Spark Your Resume. I talk about going on Girl Boss, which is a networking platform, and offering to do free resume reviews last summer. it's kind of like, again, framing the story how you want it to be told. And then again, connect the dots and call to action on your cover letter. This is huge. Like, it's closing the deal. It's saying, okay, look, I've sold myself in the past 3 paragraphs. I'd love to schedule an interview time to learn more about this role and further explain how I can add value to your company. Like, that at the end of the day, like, that's what it's about. Like, these recruiters need you to do something. They need you to make their team members' lives easier. You need to consolidate a process, something, whatever it is. That's going to be your job. You're going to add value in that way. You can add value. Be very direct and be very upfront about it. And yes, cover letters are also annoying. You definitely want to make sure that you take the time to personalize each one. Make sure it's focused on specific skills that you need for the role. Absolutely make sure that you have your company letter or company name, the right name, which has happened before if you just copy and paste. But it's all these like little things, and there's a million different ways to also write a cover letter. But once you have a good structure, then you can kind of copy paste. Again, it's the same with the elevator pitch, having your destination, backstory, connect the dots. You can plug those in wherever you need, and you can take different experiences as well. So now the interview, and we're blowing through, so we have some time for Q&A at the end. And this is the last big part. But you have to prepare for your interviews. Always. Doesn't matter if it's a 15-minute coffee chat interview over FaceTime or the phone, or if you're sitting down with an admissions counselor, or if you're actually interviewing for a job. You need to make sure that you do your research. So that looks at researching the company, the CEO, current events, history. So for college right now, to be looking up the university, looking at their president, looking at their board of directors, looking at in the news at all lately, looking at the history of their school. And then you want to look at the feedback from customers, employees, from former students, and when possible, like everyone here has created a LinkedIn or has started to get comfortable with networking. Don't be afraid to reach out to former employees or former students. Once you actually go to school and you're applying to jobs in the real world, one great way to do it and one great way to network with people and get referrals for jobs is to reach out to alumni from your school that are currently working at your company of your choice. And there's ways that you can do that on LinkedIn. But again, it's one area where if you get more comfortable reaching out to people, then that'll be a huge asset for you moving forward. Another thing, I was just talking to my friend about this, read and understand the job description. If they talk about how organized you need to be, then you should be prepared to talk about how organized you've been in the past. And lastly, have your questions ready. Always have your back pocket questions, whether or not it's, over the past 5 years, how has digital transformation changed this company? Moving forward, it'll be, how did your company handle the COVID-19 crisis? What did they do differently? What were some of the failures? If you could go back and do it differently, what would you do next? You could approach it from, how has your company handled diversity and inclusion, especially with the rise of Black Lives Matter? Have people actually been talking about it? Or is it are you guys genuine in that approach? Have you done anything differently? There's a million questions that you have, and all of them are valid, but the more thoughtful they are, then the better they can be. If you're going into a finance role and you notice that somebody's stock skyrockets, you should know that, and you should understand, what happened, or be ready to ask questions. With that, the interview is usually either behavioral, which has to do more with your personality, more seeing how you've reacted to certain situations in the past. And I don't know if you've heard of the CAR or the STAR method, but it tackles C stands for challenge, action, and result. So very similar to your resume, you want to focus on what happened, what you did to help solve the problem or to help the situation, and then what actually happened at the end. And so with behavioral interviews, you can map out common questions. That's where you're going to get asked, have you ever worked with a team member who hasn't held their own weight or who wasn't following proper protocol? Have you ever been put on a project that you knew nothing about, and how did you handle it? You can kind of gauge and see, you can research different behavioral questions and prepare for them before without having a memorized answer. But thinking about it with the car method definitely has helped me in the past. And then there's also technical interviews. So these are less fun, definitely. Not always my favorite. I like them for consulting because they're fun case interviews and you get to solve a specific problem. But technical interviews assess your technical abilities, and they're very common with computer science roles, engineering, coding, finance. But they specifically look at certain types of questions, and talking about it in a general sense doesn't help too much because they are very specific per roles. And you'll know if you're going into a technical interview versus a behavioral one. And you can ask your recruiter about this as well, because you'll have one main point of contact throughout the entire time. So keep in mind too, interviews are a two-way street. So when I say have your questions ready, I mean, you can also ask, what is your favorite part of your job? What is your least favorite part of your job? What do you think your company's not doing really well right now? What's going amazingly? So much of job hunting and working, and also college, and specifically to all the rising seniors out there, when you're looking for college, every conversation you have is a two-way street. You want to make sure that you end up at the place that's the best fit for you and that's going to help you grow and develop. And if you get that feeling that it's not going to be it, then it's not worth it, and it's not worth your time, it's not worth their time, and it's okay to not be the right fit for somewhere and not feel like you fit in there. That's also fine. Then the last thing, following up. We talked about it a little bit before. You want to stay in touch with people, but whenever possible, if you're at a conference, if you just did an in-person interview, if it's the end of the year and you're at school and you worked with an admin assistant or you worked with your dean, write handwritten thank you notes. Obviously, this is going to look a little bit different right now because of COVID and everything being digital, but whenever you can, if you can actually take the time to write out a thank you note, it's crazy the effects that it has. I was at IBM. I got like over 50 people thank you notes, personalized, talking about a specific piece of advice they had or a coffee chat we had. Dropped them all off. Went to Cape Town for 3.5 months, came back after 4 months, just walked around with one of my friends who was working there, and people were like, I know you. Weren't you a co-op? Didn't you leave? Are you working here again? / why are you back? You left the thank you note, right? And it's crazy because people actually do remember that, and they will remember you. With thank you notes, never start with thank you. It makes it so much easier if you save it for the end. With graduation notes right now, I'm writing the whole, wow, the past 3 years have flown by. I can't believe I'm graduating. And then at the end, it's like, thank you for your gift that you got me for graduation will be great. It's like, thank you for sharing that piece of advice that you gave to me that has helped me for the past couple months. Like, get creative. If you're writing an email after an interview, you can always ask, is there anything else I can send along to make this process easier for you? And you always want to be aware of your next steps. Also, something I forgot on here too, like I'd say your 3 things that you want to do in a thank you note or email, especially thank you email, anything you can do to help with the process, the decision-making process. What next steps should you be aware of? You want to know the timeline. And ask for feedback. Be very candid and say, is there anything I could have done better in this interview? Is there anything you think I should know moving forward? I had a friend and a mentor who had a second round interview with Bloomberg for a sales role. And the hiring manager on the phone asked her if she'd been following any current events, and she had no answer, which is bad. You should always be following current events right before an interview, especially. But at the end of the interview, even though she knew she messed up, she took the time and asked, like, moving forward, what should I be doing differently? And do you have any feedback for me? And the hiring manager said that because she took the time to ask and get better and show that interest, it actually gave her the opportunity to then have the final round interview, which she wouldn't have gotten because she messed up. So those 3 things I would say are very important. And then again, stay in touch with your recruiters, message them, let them know what you're up to. Once you guys are interviewing for job roles and stuff, there'll be times when there's just not enough room at a company. But if you stay in touch and you actually build a relationship, if an opportunity opens up, then they'll be willing to call on you later. So with that, if there are any questions, I see that there are some in the Q&A bubble I'll start going through. I'll also check the chat. Thank you guys for listening. And tomorrow also, with any other questions that you might have, I'll be doing the takeover at 1 p.m. Eastern time, 10 a.m. Pacific time. My email is there, my LinkedIn's there. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, you know what to do. Leave a personalized note. You can even just say workshop week 6 for Project Snapshot, and that'd be huge. And I'll try to get to those this week. And that is the end of the slideshow, though, so I will stop sharing my screen and get to these Q&As. Okay, so are elevator pitches only used in job interviews? No. Elevator pitches can be used anywhere and everywhere, and think of it as your quick little spiel to let someone know about you. If your Aunt Donna that you haven't talked to in a year and a half, and you see her at Thanksgiving this year because your family decided to do a big Thanksgiving because everyone's been good about social distancing and we need interaction. If she asks you what you're doing and what you're going to school for, that's kind of what you could give her almost. Your elevator pitch is you selling yourself or talking about yourself, what you're doing. And so, yes, you'll have it in a job interview when they say, like, hey, like, tell me about yourself. You don't just want to walk through your resume. You want to give them your elevator pitch. But you also use it in networking scenarios as well. From Isabella, for a resume for a certain job, do you include different things or highlight different things that you have done? So when you're starting out and when you're building your resume, you're definitely going to have pretty much most of the things that you've done on there. But as you start getting more experience, then you'll start to tailor it and you'll start to change it. Maybe at your school, you were the president of your ecology club or something at your high school. So let's say it's your freshman year of university, you have different jobs, or you're applying to different internships, you've already had one, and it's time for you to start taking things off of your resume. So you have president of ecology club on there. You also have, I don't know, like member of your fashion club at your school. So if you're applying for an internship with the UN or with a company that's focused on eco-friendly or climate change or something, you want to make sure that you highlight that you're president of ecology. And maybe if you don't have room, then you'll take off your fashion club membership. But if you're applying for a company where you'd be doing fashion merchandising, or if you were going to be the social media intern and it's a fashion company, like you want to highlight those certain skills. So I hope that answers your question. You can your resume should be a mix and match sometimes. You want to make sure that you are highlighting skills for certain roles and certain jobs. And as your CV grows, so as your overall list grows, you're definitely going to tailor your resume more. From Lucy, I've seen a lot of mixed preferences on resume templates, Google Doc versus Canva. I would recommend, in terms of looking at a professional resume page or a creatively designed one. For me, I had both because I started as a marketing finance double major. I think that when you're looking at creative roles, then you should definitely have more fun with your resume, if you will. When I applied for Google, the one tip I got was to make my resume googly. So I wrote my name in Google colors and tried to make it more festive and more fun. But I think part of that also is having a relationship with your recruiter, and you can ask, hey, is there a certain format that is preferred? Like if you're applying to a finance or consulting or computer engineering or data role, then it will be more professional. And I'd suggest looking at I'm not impressed with the Google templates, not even super impressed with the Microsoft ones, but exploring those or exploring your school's resume template. But there is a time and place for a creative one, absolutely. And also, shameless plug, Ziffa Mexo, who's also one of the mentors, she actually took the time and took about an hour to take her resume and put it into Tableau, which is a data visualization tool. So think Excel, but you can easily actually turn your data into visual graphics. And so she created a visual graphic resume. And she has a post on that on her LinkedIn, and it links the video that she used. So you can have fun messing with your resume and having a bunch of different variations. That's also why it's good to have a CV, because then you can have all that base information there and you can easily copy and paste it into different templates um, as necessary. So then let's see who's next. Miko, if you take an online course from a university, you can put them on, can you put them on education? It depends. If you have here, for example, Harvard, if you like paid for a certification, then I'd say definitely. If it was a conference, then I'd say definitely. But again, I would be aware. Like I this year had the opportunity to do Harvard's virtual venture and management program, which is usually in person. But I do have to make sure like I'm distinguishing between the fact that it was a virtual program, it wasn't the same, it wasn't Harvard curriculum. And I want to be sensitive to the fact that if a Harvard recruiter looks at my profile at any point, or when I am applying for my MBA, I don't want to over embellish. So if you do take an online course, I think you could have like a section for online courses. And you might not want to just put that under education, or have a section under education specifically for online courses. Honestly, to address Anna's question about putting soft skills under the skills category, if you have room, then go for it. But if there's any way that you can introduce using strong like action verbs, like you collaborated on a team of 8 people to meet this measurement or whatever, like if you can actually show that instead of just telling them, then that tends to be a little bit stronger. And as you have more stuff on your resume, you won't have as much room for your soft skills, because that's valuable real estate that you could be using for other things and other information. Are there certain interests that a recruiter find repetitive, or is it turnoff? Thompson, the most I've heard about interests, like either people are all for them or like, why are they wasting space? I think you want to be mindful and make sure that your interests aren't wasting space. Like, so try to be specific when possible. I think that everyone can more or less say that they're interested in travel. But if you're specifically interested in mountain climbing, and that's why you like to travel, or that's what you do on your vacations, or if you go surfing specifically when you're on your vacations, like elaborate on that. If you list an interest and you say that you're interested in Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, like I've heard stories where recruiters will then proceed to ask about very specific things because they think they can have an actual conversation with you and connect with you about this. And so it's like, it depends, of course, on the recruiter you have, but it depends on like how much you actually want to talk about them. Again, like interests, I would also say you could put in your LinkedIn about summary area. So that way people connecting with you have an icebreaker that they can ask you or talk to you about. I don't know if there are any specific ones that recruiters find as a turnoff. If it's general and if you're just like, oh, I love data, there's ways that you can make that more specific to you as a person. And so I think the specificity of it will make it more personal and make recruiters actually enjoy it a bit more. Also, I see that we're coming up to the top of the hour. If anyone has to log off, that's totally fine. If we have a couple more minutes, Vivian, I'm good to keep going through the rest of these Q&As. And also we'll be on the takeover tomorrow as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say that for like the rest of the questions, you're free to like go a little bit over, just answer them, because I know that there's a lot of burning questions, and I'm actually curious to know too.
Yeah, perfect. I'm good to stay on for about 10 more minutes. So if anyone does have more questions, keep them coming. If not, thank you guys for tuning in, and I am all ears. If you guys want to ping me, let me know how this entire thing went. If there's things that you guys thought I didn't talk enough on or talk too much on, let me know. Feedback is golden. I would appreciate it. But back to the questions. Earlier I mentioned that we should connect with people with the intention of keeping a relationship. What do you think is the best way to keep that relationship, by keeping it professional or making it personal? I think there's ways to do both. And so, for instance, with Project Snapshot, I'm also an advisor for the HR team and the recruitment team internally. And the other HR advisor, his name's Josh Chen, and we set up a time to just phone chat and like kind of get to know each other more. And I'd say like that started as a very professional relationship. And because we are peers, it can be a little bit more casual now. But now we talk about things like him and his wife had their first anniversary a couple weeks ago. I like messaged him and was like, hey, I hope it went well. If we have like random questions, and we'll talk to each other. If we're just online, we can message each other back and forth and keep it very casual. So it depends on if you're at that peer level or versus like a recruiter. For me, I have a couple of recruiters that I've met at different conferences. I just messaged a bunch of recruiters that I met and connected with from Out for Undergrad back in October. And that was definitely more professional. It was more of, oh, like, how are you doing? I just graduated. I actually do have a job, but I just wanted to check in and see how things have been going for you, especially since quarantine. How's the company shifted? So I think part of that's gauging it and seeing how it goes. I know that's not a super straightforward answer, but I do think that if you aren't 100% sure, if you're not sure, I'd err on the side of keeping it more professional than not. But you can also talk to your friends or your mentors or whoever else you trust in your life to kind of give you another perspective. That's another thing, like with your network and stuff, you should be able to rely on your network, which is why it's important to keep talking to people and building relationships. Obviously, you're going to have your very close circle and you're going to have your more like spread out circle. But my best friends and my roommates in college and the people that I'm starting this whole like adult life into, they're the ones that's like, hey, I have to send out this email to this recruiter. I have to send out this email to like my boss or to the company or to the school. Like, can you look over this for me? Like, is there anything you would change? It's like, oh, they're your support group. Sorry, that kind of got a little bit tangent-ish. Okay. Oh, thank you for whoever said that I'm so confident and articulate. Any tips for not completely bombing or blanking on an interview due to nerves? Yes. With my first interview was over the phone. Like I said, once I learned that human capital consulting was a thing, I got very excited about it. And Deloitte is one of the best firms for human capital consulting. And so I was very nervous going into my first phone interview. I was like, I can't mess this up. I can't mess this up. This is the job I need. This is the only job I want now. And I definitely did a lot of prep, but it was behavioral interview. So it was a lot more laid back. And when I say like I mapped out my responses with CAR, I mean, I looked at all the questions that I'd written down that I'd had from other interviews. I messaged friends. I looked at lists online, and I would write out like, okay, I know that I'm probably going to get the question, when's a time I worked with someone that I didn't like or that didn't do their part of the project of the week. So then I broke it down and I literally wrote out like, okay, this was what happened. This was the situation. This was the context. This was the action that I did to solve the problem or to help with it. And then this was the result. And sometimes the results were failures, sometimes they were great, but literally like bullet pointing those certain things out and getting comfortable talking about situations that I can bring up in an interview. That was really helpful for me. And also making sure that like I look over my resume, I look over the job role, and I like take a second to prioritize the things that I want to bring up. I know that if I'm talking to someone from an international background or if I'm talking to someone that's worked with startups, I want to talk about my experience in South Africa. And there are specific stories or anecdotes that I want to bring up. So I'll take an extra time to like make sure that I have those fresh in my mind. And also ask friends or family or professors or TAs or someone who's a year older than you. Ask them to do a practice interview with you. Mock interviews are a lot less stressful and a lot more relaxed and fun and a great way to just get comfortable with either the behavioral interview or I've had friends that helped me prep for the specific interviews you need for consulting as well. But practice definitely helps and preparation. Miko, where do you put conferences you've attended for leadership? So in high school, I had conferences under my education. Now I have them kind of at the bottom, like I have them under leadership and activities, just because I kind of just have them listed now. but I think like under education could be a solid place to put them. Or having a separate like conference and additional like education or activities is fine. Relevant high school courses. Yes, Claire. If you have taken classes that you think will be relevant or good to know for, especially for college and college admissions, or especially your first semester, first 2 semesters of college, it doesn't hurt to have those relevant courses from high school on there. My school doesn't offer accounting or anything. Like, I guess we kind of have a pretty solid STEM program, but for me, there was nothing super relevant that I even thought to put on my resume, even though I should have. So if you have those opportunities and if you have specific classes, absolutely like put them on there, showcase them. Your resume and your cover letter and your elevator pitch, all of that should just sell yourself. Like, all of you guys are fantastic. You guys are amazing. Your experience that you have now compared to what it's going to be in 2-3 years from now, even more amazing. And I know it can be uncomfortable to brag or boast about yourself, but don't see it as that. Like, this is really you selling yourself. If you don't, someone else will. A lot of you are going into college. Like, colleges only have finite spots. Like, they can't just open it up to everyone. Who knows? Maybe this year they will, since they can do everything virtually anyways. But just like take a second and think about the value that you can add to wherever you go, because it's there. Also, something like kind of random that I did last year with Inroads, with Marketing Edge, which is another organization, another conference I went to, and with City National Bank. All 3 of those entities did personal branding webinars or personal branding seminars that we had to sit through, and that pushed me to look into like what my family, friends, peers, coworkers, mentors, bosses thought of me in the professional and personal sense. And so I sent out a text to them and I was like, hey, can everyone just send me 3 words of what you think of me? And that kind of helped me have a clearer vision of what others thought I was good at as well. So that's helpful for anyone who might be interested in doing something personal branding, look into yourself sort of deal. Yeah. That's all I have. Everyone here, you are fantastic and amazing. And I'm so glad I was able to log on and do this. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern time, I will have my takeover in the Slack channel. And even if you're not on for that specific hour, feel free to message me, ping me with whatever questions, comments, concerns you have. And I look forward to connecting with all of you. If you connect on LinkedIn, please remember to send a personalized note just so I know who you are. Yeah. Thank you all. You're so sweet.
By the way, thank you so much. I actually really learned a lot from the webinar, so I'll say thanks again. And her takeover is actually coming up tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. If you have any last questions for her, feel free to pop them in the #takeovers channel, and she'll be answering them. And by the way, I'll be sending out the recording soon, and as well as her slides and takeaways when she sends them over.
Absolutely. Bye, friends. Have a great rest of your week.
All right, you too. Bye. Have a good rest of your week.